Yep, Rich. Go ahead,
Good
Chair.
morning. Good morning. My name is Sterling Higa, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd now like to call to order the November 6th, 2024 Kakaako Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The time is now 10:11 a.m.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Kakaako board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The HCDA communications staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourself to speak. It is important that all individuals clearly state their name, pseudonym, or other identifier name each time prior to speaking. If you wish to provide oral testimony and you are attending virtually, please indicate so by clicking the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. If you are attending in person, you'll be called to the front of the room in the order that you signed up. All testimony will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Your testimony must be related to an item on the agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself, spell your name for the record. When 1 minute is remaining, 1 minute remains will be called out. And when 30 seconds is remaining, 30 seconds remain will be called out. When time is elapsed, time will be called, after which you have 30 seconds to conclude your testimony, and then your audio will be turned off. If you are attending in person, the presiding officer will call the next testifier. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity to share your thoughts with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. If the authority's connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you,
Chair.
Craig. HCDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Let the record reflect that the following members are present. Vice Chair Ishii.
Here.
Member Miranda Johnson is excused. Member Anderson.
Here.
Member Streitz.
Excused, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Member Evans.
Here.
Member China.
Here.
And Member Sakota.
Here.
And our cultural specialist seat is vacant.
Chair, we have quorum.
Great. For today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted to provide their testimony respectively. We'll move now to agenda item number 2, approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 2nd, 2024. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? If there are no comments or questions, the minutes are approved as presented. Moving now to agenda item number 3, decision making. Consider authorizing the executive director to enter into a non-binding letter of intent with Kupu, a Hawaii nonprofit corporation, for Kupu's lease and development of the NOAA lot located at Kewalo Basin Harbor, 1125 Ala Moana Boulevard, Honolulu, Hawaii, and further described by tax map key number 12-1-058-135 in accordance with the terms and conditions described in the staff report. Ms. Lindsay Doi, Asset Manager, will now present the staff report.
Morning, members. This is located in tab 2 of your packets. You may remember we first touched on this item a few months back in terms of leasing our NOAA lot at Kewalo Basin Harbor to Kupu. Kupu does currently lease from the city the adjacent Ho'okupu Center. So they are interested in expanding their services to the adjacent property, which is owned by HCDA. They do currently hold a right of entry for a small portion of that NOAA lot for storage and some long-term needs. So leasing the entirety of the parcel would also help them in that endeavor. I do have Kupu here to present what they hope to do on the NOAA lot parcel. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Leong, CEO of Kupu.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Aloha, members. Thank you very much, Chair Higa,
Vice Chair Ishii, Executive Director Nakamoto, and the other members and staff. Thank you for having us here today. We've had a really wonderful partnership with HCDA over the last, decade and a half, I think now. At the now Ho'okupu Center, which was once the Net Shed, as some of you may remember. And just seeing the improvements that have happened over there over the years. And I shared in our educational session a few months ago, as Lindsay shared, some of Kupu's background and some of the needs that have driven us towards looking to expand the footprint of what we're doing over there. Just in brief, some of the needs have been that our programs have been successful. And as we've had more success, having more space for our young people is essential. Also, parking is a really important area. And we just want to continue to uplift the space as well too for the community and make it a nicer area. So there's a lot of really great synergistic needs in why Kupu is looking to move it forward. I did go over these slides last time, but I'll just briefly kind of share some of the designs to refresh people's memories. If we can go next slide, please. Next slide. So the area, we do have a site map that's at the end of this, but just to kind of share where you see the numbers, that's the area that's getting improved. And as I mentioned, it includes from a bird's eye view parking in number 3, park space and meeting space for young people to do things, a hula mound. There's the old pumps that we're preserving, and you can see that there's bushes around it below number 6. And then improving the building, so redoing the envelope of the building as well as interior improvements to create more classrooms and meeting spaces. I think we can go to the next slide, please. And so this is just more of the interior that how it would feel, and look, there's some reference pictures on the side, on the right-hand side, to just kind of give you the feel of what we're looking to do. Having flexible spaces for our young people to get together, having different community events. As some of you may know, we host Kupuna that does Hawaiian music every week. We have Lauhala weavers that weave at the space, dance like Tahitian and other Polynesian dance groups that use the space. Churches use the space. So there's a variety of flexible space that for Kupu's use, but as well, we have our community focuses that we've committed to over the years. Classroom spaces, a maker space for our young people to do things with their hands and build and grow new skill sets. Outdoor areas, so the existing lanai, just kind of improving it and then making kind of outdoor seating areas. And then a little general store that we would have too with bentos and food for and also feed our members, as well as community members can also come up and grab stuff as well too. Next slide, please. This is just a closer view of what I shared with you just now, kind of to see how it broken up. As you can see in the orange, and on the right-hand side, we've kept a portion for the harbor master and for the lifeguards. So our commitment is to keep them there as long as they want to be there and provide them space. And what we'll also do is provide them their own base yard on the right-hand side. You can see that yellow sliver as well as the parking lot on the right-hand side of the building. And that will be for the exclusive use for the lifeguards and harbor master. And they also have the parking that belongs to Howard Hughes's lease. That's Mauka of the building, which is also indicated by the gray area. So really giving them their own entrance, their privacy, but also their own space as well. So it's a better fit for everyone. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like today. And then we can move to this is what a rendering of what it would look like after it's been improved. And then these are just the lease terms that we're seeking. And we've worked with the staff to provide these to you guys. It would be a 60-year lease at $1 a year, which is similar to what we have at the Ho'okupu Center in terms of the rate. And then we'd want to, like I just mentioned, keep the existing subtenants, so the harbor master and lifeguards. The boundaries, I'll show it to you in a second in a map. Actually, why don't we just go ahead and show the boundaries in the next slide, please. So the orange is the middle of the week. I can't tell my colors anymore. The purple on the outside is the magenta line is the overall boundaries of the TMK. And then what we're proposing is that the blue line would be the area that Kupu would operate and manage. The parking lot, there's a total of 78 stalls, 58 of them. We would provide a license to the state after we've been leased it to revert it back to the state to develop and manage that, which would be a paid parking area for the community. And then the red line outlines Kupu's parking area, which we would have for Kupu's exclusive use for the center. So those are the boundary lines. And then there, Howard Hughes, as a reminder, has the lease Malka of us. Yeah, and then if we can go back up to the term sheet, please. And then, so we are asking for the parking that we are able to have valet abilities for certain times. So we're having a buyout request that in a month, we could have 10 times in which we would be able to utilize the facility, similar to how we're using the NOAA lot today. We have the ability to utilize it for Kupu events. And then, of course, we'd be conscientious to not do that during heavy periods of the park usage or special events that are happening at the park. And we'd have to get approval with HCDA, but this would allow Kupu, part of the need for us as well is to have parking as well and not interfere with the public parking. And so having that would be helpful and allow us to valet and have events at the parking space. Timeline, our goal is to get the project done within 3 years. The letter of intent that we're seeking is critical for us in that as we seek out resources and support, we need that to show that we have some form of site control or agreement towards site control. An example is that we've been in deep discussions with one of our funding agency, and they have funds that could help with all of the pre-development, but their deadline is in January. So we really want to try to get, and they need a LOI for us to be able to qualify for that. So those are things that, examples of how the LOI will help us in our fundraising efforts. I mentioned we have a 3-year timetable, and then we're just asking for, there might be unforeseen needs, a 24-month grace period. Any kind of force majeure type of activities that might occur that is beyond our control. So that is our goal, to have the project complete within that time. So those are the terms, and Lindsay, I don't know if I want to add anything.
That's perfect. So members, the request today is to approve a letter of intent with those terms that John just outlined. The form of the actual lease, including that parking arrangement, I know it's a little unique in that Kupu would be leasing the entirety of the tax map key, the NOAA lot TMK, and then they would be licensing us back that parking lot portion, the 50 parking lot area, so that HCDA could develop that area as a public parking lot and then operate and manage it as a public paid parking lot. So that entire area would be under Kupu's lease. The letter of intent really, as John mentioned, is just something that's the first step to their development to secure some financing. The actual lease would come back before this board for lease approval, and then there would also be a planned development permit that Kupu would need to obtain. So that's the full public procedure that normally happens for developments in the area. So this won't be the last time that this board sees this project, but again, this would be the first step to allowing them to go after some of that funding. If there's any questions though, John and his team is here to clarify.
And Chair, if I can just add something to Lindsay's report, just to summarize it.
Yeah, please do.
So I think what this represents in this proposal is really a win-win-win for a lot of people. As Lindsay noted, it's going to be a longer-term lease with Kupu. The $1 a year lease reflects, I think, the community benefit that they provide to kids and also just the community and the state. However, it does, create retain a revenue component for the state in terms of the parking. So we would control the public parking for that parking area. So while we don't have there's a nominal rent for the programmatic parts of the development, the parking is something that we decided we wanted to create a revenue component. The third win is that by having public parking retained by HCDA or controlled by HCDA, we really create a kind of a public facilities and a public parking that's available for not only for Kupu, as John mentioned, when they do functions, but it's also public parking for surfers, park users and others when overflow parking is necessary. So I think those are the sort of the win-win-win components of this, and we're looking forward to working with John on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director. We'll go to members' comments and questions. Member Evans.
Thank you. I have a question, I think, for Lindsay and Craig. I note that the lease is proposed for $1 a year for a long period of time. I also note that there will be public services in the proposed office space improvements. Is Kupu allowed to increase those tenant rents over time? And is there a sandwich profit that there's a policy that Kupu should be able to use those revenues for their public services? Or is there a question about whether the HCDA should be recouping some of that if there is a sandwich profit there for the tenants? Not the parking, but the building.
You're talking about the lifeguard and the harbor master tenants? Okay, so
Yes.
those, I know that in our talks with Kupu, we had discussed what they essentially have now, which is they do not pay rent right now. I believe Kupu has talked about some utility expenses, sharing in those utility costs, but that's not something that I think we've fully fleshed out yet. That would be something that we could memorialize in the lease, but right now Kupu has I think committed to offering the spaces to harbor master and lifeguards as indicated in the site map at a no charge for the rent, as long as they desire to be there.
And Lindsay, may I add to
Yep.
that? And thank you, Member Evans, for your question. Yeah, so our intent is to provide that to them at a the existing rate, which is the $1 a year. And then, as Lindsay mentioned, have a CAM fee to help with just the maintenance and utilities, their fair share of those portions, which we believe is fair. We are going to also be investing through our fundraising efforts to renovate the whole building as a whole too, but we just want to make sure that it's maintained. If they leave, we're asking for the ability to expand our footprint at the same terms as what's being approved. But our goal is probably not to refill it as subtenants, but probably to, as the programs grow, have additional space. But then we would, if there was a need to refill it, we're happy to discuss those opportunities with Lindsay to put in the lease, as you mentioned, that the revenue stays within that program for the community benefit or other good purposes.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay and John, and thank you, Chair. No more questions from me.
Thank you, Member Evans. Member Anderson.
Thank you. Lindsay, I was wondering if, do we have some kind of competitive process to make this available? Or are we just able to accept proposals? I'm not quite clear on that. And then, the Waikiki Yacht Club is a nonprofit, and I wonder how much rent they pay the state. Is that something that you can inquire on?
Thank you for the question. So with regard to your first question, the competitive nature, so leasing activities are not subject to procurement. So we can entertain any proposal that we deem consistent with our mission. So we do traditionally have folks come to us for certain parcels. We evaluate them and then we bring them to the board for your review and discussion. So that is not something that we would need to say solicit best offers or highest and best use. It's more something that we can do as a real estate development transaction as a board or as an authority. The second portion, I think we could ask, I'm not exactly familiar with their land transactions and if it's exactly the same, but we can definitely look into that one.
Okay, I think that would be useful. I think DLNR handles their lease and has they're a nonprofit as well. So and they might have some model that we can follow, balancing the public interests with also the revenue and maintaining things. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Member Sakota?
Good morning, John, Lindsay. Just looking at the picture that's on the screen, how do the parking lots differ? Is my first question. And then the second question is, remind me who maintains all the areas outside of that space dedicated to Kupu?
Yep.
Answer the first one. Thank you, Member Sakata, for your question. So the maintenance question is that in the parking lot area that it would be maintained by the state HCDA, and Kupu would maintain the area that is surrounding it. So the back of the parking lot, there's proposed parklet, and then our buildings, similar to how we're doing currently with the whole Kupu Center, we maintain the areas that are within our lease boundaries and take care of those areas to protect them and keep them up.
So to clarify, the picture that you're seeing on screen right now actually shows two different TMKs. So the right side, the side, I guess, yeah, to the right of the screen is the NOAA lot, but to the left, the parking lot to the left with the whole Kupu Center is a city-owned property. It used to be HCDA, but it's now city. So the parking lot on the left is maintained and managed by the city. That's the Kewalo Basin Park parking lot. The rendering of the parking lot on the right-hand side is what HCDA would be developing. The 58 stall public paid parking lot is what HCDA would be funding, managing, and maintaining. Similar to the Diamond Head parking lot at the entrance to Kewalo Basin Harbor, we also manage, maintain, and collect all revenues from that public paid parking lot at the entrance of Kewalo Basin. So it'd be very similar to what we envision.
I guess one of the issues that I have is that, every time I go out there, it's a little bit of a homeless issue out there at times. And boy, that whole area has just huge potential to be just a beautiful spot. But that always kind of puts a damper on it when I'm walking out to that point. And there's some sidewalk concrete issues, I think, as well out there that need to somehow be addressed.
Members, I appreciate and agree with your point, and we've had, we've been there since 2011, and before we got there, it was the whole Kupu Center, which is what Lindsay was mentioning now, used to be called the Net Shed, and I guess the other nickname for it was the Crack Shack, and so it was a place where people were doing drugs, homelessness. I mean, when we first got it, we were on a month-to-month lease with HCD, and I think we had like 4 big containers of trash that were removed. And so although we can only control what's happening on our TMK and our parcel, we've seen a big difference. There was I think year over year, HPD said there were a 90% decrease in calls to that area, just having that place occupied. And so we envision the same thing. Well, again, we can't control all the city area and the other areas, lifting this area up, creating more activity and presence, and just beautifying it a lot more. We hope that it'll add to just the whole area feeling a lot better. And just like Executive Director Nakamoto had shared, having that public-private partnership provides that win-win opportunity where we're providing presence and activity, beautification, and it also helps to support our programs to grow and make a difference.
That's great. I just want to look for some ideas and strategy on how to just get everybody on the same page so that area becomes much more productive and safe and beautiful for people to take a walk out there.
I totally
Alright.
agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Sakota. Member Evans, another question?
Yes, please. How did the city acquire a portion of this area for their parking lot, and do they charge for their parking?
So I can answer that question because I was involved in that transfer. So in 2019, this property, the Net Shed property and the Kewalo Basin Park property, including the Kewalo Basin Park parking lot, was transferred to the city as part of our parks lands transfer. So Waterfront Park, all of those other parks that gave us a lot of headaches, were all given to the city. So that parking lot is just, it was included as part of the Kewalo Basin Park property. It is free, just like there are other park properties, there are other parking properties. But I do know back when we did transfer it, there were a lot of issues with people parking in the park parking that didn't necessarily use the park. Whether that be they jump on charter boats, or do other things, that was a concern. So we were very strict as far as who could park in that parking lot. And we did tell the city, it really is reserved for park users only. We had a lot of talks with Kupu, and Kupu understood that patrons to their Net Shed facility could not park in the public parking lot. That was only for people using the park. I know we talked a lot with Friends of Kewalos about that. So that is a very, I think, protected parking lot that we want to make sure remains for park users. But again, it is now the city's parking lot, but I think the city feels the same way.
Are they maintaining it?
I'm not sure how they manage that. When we owned it, we had a towing contract, which was fairly effective in discouraging non-park users from parking there. I'm not sure if the city has the same mechanisms. But I have heard recently that as far as homeless encampments or parking, that they've been kind of looking at that and doing some enforcements on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other comments or questions? I'd just like to offer, building on Member Evans and Member Sakota, that we should be communicating with the city and county of Honolulu for park improvements and maintenance, because this will, I think, increase traffic to this park, which is beloved by many, including myself. I grew up surfing Kewalos. And the primary constraint on access to the park at this point is this parking lot. So adding these additional stalls will mean more people at this park. And to Member Sakota's point, it could be a very beautiful park, but we will need cooperation from the city to maintain and make improvements to their portions of it. So if we could open and maintain that line of communication, Craig and Lindsay, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move now to public testimony. Do we have anyone signed up to testify on this matter?
Yes, Chair, we do. Sorry. Member Anderson.
I'm sorry, Member Anderson.
Wait till after the public testimony.
Well, you can make your ask question.
The one thing I'm thinking of is the lease, and the terms of the lease and the 60 years. I'm just asking, is there a way that we can move this motion forward? But I think there might have to be a more sophisticated mechanism there, because it's such a long period of time, So that would be, I'm just asking, as we approach the motion, is that absolutely essential? Because once we go out with 60 years and $1, the financing is all going to be based off of that. So it's going to be difficult in the future to adjust that.
Thank you, Member Anderson.
Yeah, If I can address that, I mean, we appreciate the longevity of it. Kupu's goal is to raise the capital necessary to improve it, and for us to be able to go out to potential funders and grants that would fund it. We do need some length of time that we'll be able to show that has staying power and that it's not going to be leaving either. And you know, our commitment here is a community project that I think is going to add a lot of value. I think that your board has looked at other opportunities with Howard Hughes and other groups, and whether it be it too commercial or the financials didn't work out for folks. I think that we're providing a really nice opportunity that will be both that provides both a lift up for the space, benefit to the community, and then allows the programs that we use to serve the community to have that staying power and that security that is going to continue on. So while I can't answer the terms questions, we really appreciate the ability to have that security as we look forward and as we look towards the fundraising portion of what we're about to do.
Chair, if I may, just wanted to kind of get elaboration on Member
Please.
Anderson's comment. So Member Anderson, are you kind of more focusing on the dollar a year lease rent or the term of the lease, or both?
Well, it's such a long term, and about, I don't know if after we approve this motion, the staff would work with Kupu, and I mean, 60 years, lots can change in 60 years, right? And other nonprofits are being asked to pay rent, even though they have a public mission too. So at the same time, the project does seem to have a very high public value. So to lock it in at $1 for 60 years at the very start, I mean, I think there has to be an arrangement where HCDA is checking in with Kupu and making adjustments through time in a good faith effort. But that's just my opinion, Craig. I'm not. I just looking at the terms as presented.
Yeah, thank you, Member Anderson. I mean, in order to move this forward, we could adjust the motion a little bit, right? To maybe give us some flexibility in the lease term. I mean, give us some flexibility to work with John and his team on the lease term and the rent with some eye towards, possible adjustment. We could do that. But I will say that I think this approach does reflect the kind of community benefit that that John brings to that place. I also believe that this rent structure reflects the location of the the NOAA building. It's not at the front of Kewalo Basin where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic or commercial traffic. It's way in the back of the Kewalo Basin Park. So as a commercial kind of use, there's probably little utility in it.
And if I could elaborate as well, we did actually put this parcel out to RFP to search for the highest and best use in 2015, and we did get the one respondent, Howard Hughes. And they kept their interest for a long time, but then recently, at the end of last year, they allowed their development agreement to expire because they realized that with their development plans, that parcel, the NOAA lot, just wasn't penciling out. It wasn't something that they were interested in pursuing development of. So that's when Kupu came in to express their interest in leasing that parcel.
And we still envision investing multiple millions, to really help upgrade the space and build it out. But I think we obviously have a different business model than Howard Hughes and other commercial entities and other resources that can support the work that we're doing. And so it's far more than just what we're going to see in the ROI, of course, but what we're seeing happening in the community and the lives of the young people that we're serving.
Chair, can I ask one more
Member
question?
Evans,
Thank you, Chair. Will the improvements on the leased lot return to the state at the termination of the lease?
I would say yes. Member Evans, I mean, we haven't gotten to that level of detail of the lease, but that's pretty standard, and if we wanted it back at that point. I would also say we might, have the ability to ask them to remove it, but that is the plan. We've back to the state.
Okay, one more thing. In 60 years, sea level rise may require some protective measures all along that waterfront, not just specifically the NOAA lot. And I'm wondering, is the $1 a year going to give Kupu the ability to raise funding to take protective measures that are approved by DLNRs for the conservation lands and the city for a special management area permit for the FASH lands?
I can speak from our experience with the Ho'okupu Center that we did go through that SMA process and did implement a lot of the precautionary efforts that have actually really helped out from creating semi-permeable hardscapes that have allowed drainage so that the king tides don't go as high up. And then also having barriers that can be put in place in entryways to protect water from coming in. So the building Ho'okupu Center just got the AIA Hawaii Sustainability Award, and our goal is to continue that trend with any further development to make sure that it's built with the resiliency in mind as well too.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, Lindsay, it's
Members.
Kevin Sakota.
Kevin.
Sorry, Sterling. Don't a lot of our leases have termination clauses, mutual termination clauses?
Some do, and so when we get to drafting the lease, we can include that, if that's the desire. I don't think we've gotten around to discussing that. But yes, the lease itself, hasn't been drafted yet. That will be brought back to this board in conjunction with the development permit.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll open it up for public testimony. Director Nakamoto, anyone signed up to testify?
Yes, we have two signed up to testify. Who's first? Ronnie Mwami. Do you sign up to testify? No. Okay, none. We have none then. Anybody else wishing to testify? Online. What? Online, anybody? Online? None, Chair.
Okay. Further discussion by members? Do I hear a... So just to clarify, if we motion as is, does that commit us to the 60-year lease at $1 a year?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, Chair. As it's currently, the motion is currently written because it kind of refers back to the staff report.
Okay. I just want to make sure for the clarity of members on the authority. So is there a motion for the board to authorize the executive director to enter into a non-binding letter of intent with Kupu, a Hawaii nonprofit corporation, for Kupu's lease and development of the NOAA lot located at Kewalo Basin Harbor, 1125 Ala Moana Boulevard, Honolulu, Hawaii, and further described by tax map key number 2-1-058-135 in accordance with the terms and conditions described in the staff report? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Member Evans moves. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Ishii. Members, is there any further discussion on the motion?
Sterling, can we add just the inclusion of a mutual termination on the lease maybe, you know, a year notice or something like that, just to be more flexible?
My understanding, Member Sakota and staff, correct me if I'm wrong, is that additional terms and conditions can be added into the lease. These are just the base terms that HCDA is agreeing to. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yes, so that's typically what we do. So for example, the parking arrangement, I know we generally talked about it, but we would nail down the specifics in the lease. We could really put in any parameters into the lease once we do draft it, but I know for the LOI, Kupu needs certain, not guarantees, but certain, I guess, assurances for their lenders that they'll have site control for a designated amount of time. So as far as a termination clause goes, would that impact? Or
If, it would probably be better if it was
in the lease? Okay, so if the terms were as stated in the staff report, the 60-year term, $1 a year rent for the whole TMK, I think that's sufficient for Kupu's financing. And then when it comes to the lease discussion, we would draft up a lease with you know, these items detailed out, bring it to the board, and we can discuss at that time if there's any other edits that we'd like to add. But the main terms would be what is approved today.
Gotcha. Thank
And Chair, if I may add, you know, Member Sakota, in some of our other kinds of arrangements, you know, we have mutual termination provisions. For something like this, that is gonna obligate Kupu to expend a lot of resources to build. I'm not sure if we could come to an agreement with Kupu on something like that, a mutual termination. If it was something where there was not a lot of resource outlay, maybe, but I'm not sure this is one of them, Member Sakota.
If I
I
could add,
mean, you know, it's good John's here today and John's looking younger, he's not aging. But I'm not sure if John's gonna be around, you know, for a while, and that's essentially what I want to protect the
I probably will be long gone. But, yes.
But your point is well taken, Member Sakota. When we develop the lease terms, we have to bring it back to the board. So, and the terms that are in the staff report are just the sort of bare bones kind of terms.
and if I could add, Member Sakota, our leases do typically already have standard language relating to, you know, breach of lease, cure times, and then termination for those causes, which I'm sure Kupu would be, you know, fine with. The mutual termination is usually for, you know, without cause. And so those would be things, like Craig mentioned, are, you know, we want to develop something else on the property. So, you know, we give them X amount of notice, but that's generally not something that we would do for a development of an entire parcel the way that John and Kupu is envisioning. It's more maybe just for a vacant lot that maybe we allow folks to park in, and then we say, okay, you know, you can't park here anymore, we're gonna develop something, so we're terminating your, it probably wouldn't be a lease, it's more like a right of entry at that point. So I think we can definitely put in some termination language that is typical, but as far as just without cause termination, that might be a little difficult.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Member Anderson, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Just based on some litigation I've seen the state get in before, is if we approve this today and somehow don't approve the permit, and the second action, does the state have any liability or need to reimburse Kupu for the work that they're going to be doing and getting this financing together in good faith?
Well, I kind of look, thank you for the question, Member Anderson. I kind of look at it a little bit differently. You're right, there's a regulatory part of this too. They do have to go through a development permit. In order to go through that process, they have to have site control. if they don't get site control and name their lease, they're not going to be able to get a development permit for this. I look at this a little bit from a different perspective, Member Anderson, in that I think when we look at these kind of letters of intent for anybody, although it's called non-binding and it is non-binding and it just shows sort of intent. I think when the board authorizes us to enter into a letter of intent, what I think the board is saying is that they support the general concept of this project on the lot. And I think that's something that they have to consider seriously, that this is indicating a strong desire and you're sort of approving it in concept.
Chair, I have a question, Chair.
Yep, please.
So, John, if you may.
Yeah.
Is there any term, I know you talked about going for your loan. In your process of going after the loan, was there a covenant as far as the term of the lease? Was there a minimum? I mean, would 30 years or, it seems like that seems to be the sticking ground. So was there a minimum lease term
Yeah,
from a covenant perspective?
I think it depends on the funder, and some of them have shorter and some are longer. I know that for example, for our Weinberg funds, we had to have at least 30 or 35 year lease.
Normally you see your 30, 35 years. That's why I'm asking a question. So, maybe the board will feel a little bit more comfortable. It was a shorter term with option.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and we would be open to that as well too, if you wanted to pursue that route. But I mean, obviously our first preference is as stated, but we also want to make sure that this feels like a win-win for all sides too.
Right.
So the motion could be, if the board so desires, it could be amended to do a 35-year initial term with 2 options to total the 60. Or, just go for the full 60. I think that would be important though to set up right now for the LOI.
Right.
And then for the actual lease, we can get more into the details, but as far as the term, I think that does need to be set.
Right. And the options will show the intent.
Exactly.
That's sort of my thought.
Member Evans, would you accept a friendly amendment to add language authorizing the staff to negotiate a 35-year lease with options for extensions?
Gary, if I-
Yes, as long as it's, we're authorizing the executive director to do that.
Sorry, authorizing the executive director. Craig, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Before we just do that, I think a lot of lease negotiations, they're kind of more global in nature. So while it might be good to just pinpoint and focus on the lease term, oftentimes there's other factors involved. So maybe if I can suggest at the end of the motion, maybe saying or other conditions agreed upon by the executive director at Kupu. Add it to the end of the motion so that it gives us flexibility to look at other things besides the lease term.
Chair,
That language sounds good. Member Evans?
yes, that's what I was going to say. I would agree to that as long as the second agrees to it.
That's Vice Chair Ishii. Do you agree to this amendment?
I don't know if it will suffice for the
LOI.
LOI. That's my concern.
Okay,
If Kupu goes up for financing, I don't know if it's gonna suffice
We need definite.
maybe,
without a definite term
Okay.
and finance amount.
okay, maybe we
Lease
can,
amounts.
we can work, if the board approves the LOI with the other language I suggested, then maybe we can sit down with Kupu and finalize the letter of intent based on that.
I think
So-
language, which authorizes the executive director to consider other terms in negotiation with Kupu would cover that, wouldn't it, Craig?
I think so too, and if Kupu says, well, the lender needs 65 years, then that's one,
35.
35 years. If they can go with 35, then we can do that.
I
Vice
think
Chair Ishii, sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, sorry, thank you, Chair. I think that may work out. I think to Vice Chair Ishii's point, as long as it doesn't, and I think we all want to have the same intent, but it doesn't look like anything major terms could be retraded. Would be our main concern, is that we don't want to be in a situation where, and we know we all have a good working relationship, but that's the main area that we would have to make sure that we protect the intent of that.
Because it'll affect funding. I'm fine with that, Chair.
Okay. So Craig, do you have the language of the amended motion?
I do. So you want me to read the whole motion and then add the additional language onto it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the motion, the revised motion on the table is, sorry. The motion is for the board to authorize the executive director to enter into a non-binding letter of intent with Kupu, the Hawaii nonprofit corporation, for Kupu's lease and development of the NOAA lot located at Kewalo Basin Harbor, 1125 Alamoana Boulevard, Hawaii, and further described by tax map key number 1-2-1-058:135. In accordance with the terms and conditions described in the staff report, or other conditions agreed upon between the executive director and Kupu.
So amended motion has been moved by Member Evans and seconded by Vice Chair Ishii. Is there any more discussion on this motion, members? Being no discussion, I will ask Craig to take the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair. On the the revised motion, Chair, Member Evans,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ishii,
Aye.
Chair Higa,
Aye.
Member Anderson,
I,
Member Chino, Member Sakura.
Yes.
Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll move to agenda item number 4 for information. And thank you, John, for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you members for your support. Appreciate it.
We'll move now to agenda item number 4 for information and discussion. Update by HCDA staff on the progress of improvements to Kolowalu Park located in the Kakaako Community Development District at the Kolowalu Park Mauka located at 1141 Waimanu Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813, and further described by tax map key number 1-2-3004-080. Mr. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director, will now present the update.
Thank you, Chair. This update is going to be a pictorial one. I decided that I probably better do a pictorial visual update, because if I don't, the board might not believe me that we're at this point in these improvements. So
It's taking a long time.
I know.
There's the lights are on.
Okay, so Fran put together this PowerPoint presentation. So there's 3 major improvements that we did at Kolowalu Park. One is the permanent crosswalk with the beacons. The other is playground equipment, and the other is just general additions like benches, picnic tables, adult fitness equipment. So as you recall, the crosswalk is something when the community wanted a crosswalk there, painted striped back. We used our own funds to hire a contractor to put the temporary crosswalk, restore the striping, and to put up the yellow bollards to warn pedestrians of the crossing. Since that time, we went up with a procurement to create a permanent sidewalk, permanent crosswalk, striping, and then a flashing beacon. So what you see there is the pictures of the crosswalk completed. The beacons are in. And there's like there's a park that needs to be flown in. There's another part that's on long lead time, but it doesn't affect this. The crosswalk is operational with the beacons. The dog park. The last thing that needed to be done for the dog park is lay down the sod. And so that sod is being laid down right now. We had a meeting with the community, and the community said, let the sod grow in and let us know when the sod is ready. The contractor says it can be used by dogs and people. So that date is probably gonna be in January, when the 90 days to after the sod installation is done. But the community that we met with was very satisfied with that, so sod is in, or is being put in right now. Today, okay. And then the third thing, next slide. The staff really did a great job in procuring picnic tables, which the community wanted, new benches for the playground area, and adult fitness equipment. I think the staff took great pride in procuring this new playground equipment, because I think it's according to the manufacturer, it's one of the only inclusive kind of playground equipment for children. So it's in. There's some finishing touches being made on that this week, but it should be ready to go. And that's the pictorial update for Kolowolo Park.
So when they're gonna open the children's playground?
In the safety truck today, this week.
Safety truck
Maybe
is like-
1 to 2 weeks-ish, pending weather now and
Yep.
and all of that.
It's ready to go.
But you can see it from inside the fence.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank Mark and his team for the work in doing this. Lindsay, Alicia and her team for the children's playground equipment. Garrett's team for all of the administrative services, the procurement, and then Francine for all these pictures and the communication on all this. Once everything is ready, Vice Chair, I think we're gonna have a grand opening. And I say it now like this, but I think I want a shave ice truck and everything there, so probably in February sometime. I know it's been a long time coming, but. Okay, thanks, that's it, Chair.
Members, any questions or comments? I just want to say, as a father of a 1.5-year-old who will greatly enjoy this playground growing up, kudos to the staff. This is like a best in class playground for the state of Hawaii. So fantastic work.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to elected officials for making this happen. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if members, no comments or questions, we'll move now to testimony. Do we have anyone signed up to testify? Anyone present or online wishing to testify? Okay, we'll move now to item number 4, update by Mark Development Incorporated, the property manager. Oh, thank you, Lindsay. We'll move now to update by Mark Development Incorporated, the property manager for the Honoakaha Senior Rental Housing Project, on the operations of Honoakaha, located at 545 Queen Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813, and identified as tax map key number 1-2-1-031-021. The authority anticipates convening an executive meeting pursuant to HRS 92-5-A-4 to consult with the board's attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's power, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities for the subject agenda item. Mr. Garrett Sasaki, Chief Financial Officer, will now introduce the presenters.
Morning, Chair members. We have Craig Watase, Chief Executive Officer of Mark Development. Online, we have Kyle Watase, President. So
Yes. Where's the camera?
the camera's right here.
Okay, that was coffee. Good morning, board members. Aloha, my name's Craig Watase. It's a pleasure to be here before HCDA again. Mark Development is a almost 50-year-old property management and affordable housing real estate development company. About 10 years ago, we had the pleasure of buying one of your other distressed properties, Nalehulu Kupuna, and we have successfully rehabilitated it and are enjoyingly managing it right down the street from this place that we're at now. I would like to give you an update on we took over property management about a year ago for Honua Kaha. And we want to give this board an update of what's been going on over the last year. Needless to say, very challenging project on the affordable housing side. So let's see, which slide are we at? So that's kind of what we're going to go through. We can talk right now about the management overview. Staffing was a challenging and difficult thing. As many of you know, in today's environment, finding employees, workers is tough. We went through a couple rounds, but have settled with a pretty good property on-site resident manager. It happened that at about the same time we were onboarding a new property management system, which we think will carry us for the next 10 or 15 years or something. So it's very, very state-of-the-art type of stuff. Integrating it with our seniors is always challenging, but we actually have pretty good participation with the tenant portals and the online payments and things like that. So we've managed to settle in and have a consistent presence, which has created, I think, a better environment. We've got a developing better and better relationship every day with the tenants at Honua Kaha senior rentals. Part of the thing was we started enforcing house rules, and of course that always creates a little friction, but everybody understands that we're fair and we enforce those rules evenly across the board. We have a 24-hour maintenance hotline for the tenants to call, and we have a maintenance team that is getting the work orders knocked down. So a good portion of taking over the property was just finding out what was wrong. There was, I don't want to disparage anybody, there was a lot of challenging things that the property had not had proper attention for a long time, in probably all aspects of the property management, from the accounting to the maintenance to the income certifications that we have to do as part of the tax credit financing. Okay, and if you haven't seen it, I know you're a statewide board, but I think everybody's been here. This is also your headquarters. So rehabbing the units was one of our first big challenges that the executive director challenged us with. We had 10 units that 20 units actually that we need to bring online. 10 of them required medium maintenance and upgrade. 10 of them required some more serious upgrades, and we're averaging about $20,000 a unit rehab, I think. We're going to show you some pictures later of what some of the unit rehabs look like. But we've successfully filled all the units that we've been able to bring online, and we're also building a wait list for tenants. Okay, here's some pictures of, on the left, you see what the original unit looked like. As we went in there and started working on it, my business partner and brother, Paul, is an architect, and so we're a little bit different as a property management company, but you know, he sees things and had better design ideas. You know, the kitchen area and the sink was dysfunctional. There was no countertop space, and so we relocated. And then on the other side of that picture, you see the bay window. We had there, as we started getting into it, we found that there was all termite problems in the kitchen cabinets as well as the bay window. They had to be rebuilt, the air conditionings, and the was not venting properly, so we had to redesign for that. There was also issues with the venting and something else, the wiring. Oh gosh, as we got into it, we found out the electrical wiring was not done properly. It's amazing we didn't have any fires at this place. They had hot wires that were just left dangling. So there was a lot of electrical work in addition to you see there. And this is what we ended up doing with a more finished product. We changed the flooring to a more modern flooring. Created a sink with countertop space, and upgraded cabinets. And the air conditioning system vents properly now, drains properly, and is not a fire hazard. Okay, and we still have 21 units that need to be upgraded. When we first came in, you know, we thought there was a certain number of vacancies, and then we found out there were some units that weren't logged down as vacant in the records. So we had more than we thought, but we have 21 units that are still vacant, but we are going to be working on rehabbing those a little at a time as cash flow allows us to. And then let's see. Yeah, one of the other challenges that we came into when we first took over was bed bugs. A lot of the tenants were bringing in bed bugs, and it was spreading, getting worse. So we had the whole place treated. We think we have it under control. We're educating the tenants on what to look for so they can see it, so we can attack it when they see it, and where not to go. So they start bringing them in, checking their furniture, checking their body, things like that. We have, as I mentioned, our new software has a resident portal. It allows the tenants to take pictures and submit work orders from their phones, or from a computer if they have it. Okay, and the next slide, yeah, income recertification. So as most of you know, low-income housing tax credit requires that we recertify the income of each tenant annually. That had not been done for quite a while. And so part of our catch-up was to get that done, and we've successfully completed income certifying all the tenants so that they're in compliance under the low-income housing tax credit rules. The community room has been reopened for seniors to reserve and use. We hosted a game night in September. A new security contractor was hired. And we think we're just enforcing things. We just get better security. There was a lot of problems with the tenants themselves, but now that they knew there's a new sheriff in town, they're getting, and they like us, it's getting better and better. They just bring their complaints to us and we try and address it. Rent payments are automated. And you know, for a lot of the seniors that hadn't before, they were used to paying by check, and you know, it's a little new, but we're getting pretty good participation. And I think over the next year, we'll have 100% buy-in. And that makes our staff more efficient. And I think it's better for the seniors as well. They all end up enjoying that versus, you know, as we all get older, sometimes we get a little less mindful or forgetful, and that doesn't, you know, they don't have to worry about being late on their rent. Okay, so again, we're looking at renovating more units and bringing them online. We have a demand. There's different challenges with the operating income, operating expenses. I think all of you have seen or read or experienced it yourselves, the increase in property insurance. And that cuts into your net operating income, which may drive the need for rent increases. Yeah, as we bring units online, we'll try and bring the revenue up as well. That's our strategy. You know, we're enforcing collections better. And we're working on the accounting so that we can give you better financial statements so we can make better managerial decisions. And that is the project. If you would want to, you can go to Mark Development's website, mdihawaii.com, and you'll see that we put Honokaha Senior Rentals on our website. And for, you know, I just turned 62 yesterday, the day before, and so I'm qualified for this housing now. So yeah, Francine is horrified. Oh, what? You're that old? Yeah, so it's and I'm not super techie like my young staff, but I'm good enough that I can navigate this kinds of things, and I think there's a lot of seniors that can also. And so we're not afraid to give our seniors that have access to technology and the skills to use it, give them the opportunity to do that. So that's our report. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. Members, comments or questions for Craig from Mark Development? Member Anderson.
Just a comment. Is there anything we can do to accelerate the rehabilitation of the senior units? I understand we probably have some agreement that governs this, but or how long is that going to take to get all those units available for occupancy?
It's a cash flow issue. We ran through your replacement reserves. And there's still a bit of money in there, but we want to keep that as a replacement reserve for other kinds of capital emergencies or whatnot. So each unit cost was running us about $20,000 to do a major full rehab. You know, if we have to bring another 10 units online would cost us $200,000. Is that my right math? Yeah. And we don't have that yet. So our plan is to do it out of cash flow. So we're going to try and tighten up on the expenses, which again is challenging because of the increase in utility costs and the increase in insurance costs and other operating costs. But we're going to continue to try and improve the net income projections. To, you know, we might look at proposing a rent increase. I think it's already on the schedule that the board did a while ago to have incremental rent increases. That may or may not be enough. You know, it's a moving target, ever evolving. So we're going to do what we can as we get the resources.
Chair, I had a question for Executive Director. It's okay with you?
Please.
So, Executive Director Nakamoto, do you think it might make more sense for us? We've done it once before, where we had HCDA spend them, you know, procure money towards this project. Do we do it one more time to bring all the rehab up and running once and for all, so that we can get all units online? The reason I bring this up is not from a necessarily financial perspective, because, you know, it's more on the fact that if now we might start getting a wait list and the need for senior housing. Do we want to bring on more homes, more properties online?
Yeah.
To help support the seniors of Hawaii? That's the reason why I'm bringing this up.
I think an additional loan amount, could be considered. I think before we get there, I think we look at other ways to, bring some more units online. Maybe look at some units that are sort of low hanging fruit and try to bring those that don't need, 20,000 in rehab and bring those units online for tenant use. I would try to look at it that way before we add in more money. I wouldn't put it off the table, but I think I would look at other ways to address it.
Vice Chair, one of the little nuances about the low-income housing tax credit program is there's a rent ceiling which you are not at yet. But if you bring in a tenant who is a voucher holder of Section 8, you can charge market rent.
Section 8.
Yeah, and so, next time what we did at Nale, that's how.
Is it still available? I mean, have.
Yeah, when it opens up, for example, at Nale Hula Kupuna, what we did with our tenants, my management staff out there at the time, and this is 3-4 years ago, when Section 8 opened up, it's an online application process now. So we had we hear things from HPHA, and so we knew it was going to be open soon, and we had gotten pre-authorization from all our tenants to, if they didn't already have Section 8, to sign them up. And so when Section 8 did open up, we jumped online. We have all the files with the tenant information entered it. We were all in there, and it took about a year. But after about a year, all of a sudden, a lot of my tenants started to get the call. Hey, you're qualified. You're next up. You're going to get Section 8. To the point where now half of Nale Hula Kupuna has Section 8 vouchers, and we get, an additional $500 per unit when we hit the market rent there. So those are the kind of strategies that we do.
Not sure of when Section 8.
Yeah, and again,
that's my only concern.
It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, you have to be ready,
Well, and Craig, I would assume that you guys are already doing that, with the tenants, so I think you should just continue to do that.
Yeah, and we look forward at, Mark Development manages about 1,500 apartments at 22 properties. And so on all our tax credit projects, we are poised for that kind of a thing. When Section 8 opens up, we try and sign up all our applicants.
Yeah,
tenants, yeah.
I mean, I know that's something we talked to you guys about, but I would continue pursuing that.
But Vice Chair is correct. It's like when it opens up, but we try to keep our ear to the ground on that, and
But I just propose the fact that we should look at allowing ECD to do a loan. That's just my comment.
Already have comments.
No, we'll keep
Thank
that top of
you.
mind. We do need to request additional funding, we will.
I'd rather look at other ways that we can, get that. So what I've suggested to Craig is kind of look at tiering, the units, and maybe there's some units that don't need as much rehab, hit those first, get those online. And then save the other ones that require more extensive rehab for later, but try to get the low hanging fruit, as it were, online first. And prioritize it that way.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Member Sakota.
I just want to, say that I probably agree with both of you, Chasen and Director. But the back of the envelope kind of calculation is that I don't think we're in a situation where this is going to cash flow positive and we're going to build up our reserves to rehab more units. So I think it's a good story to tell. It's like, hey, put the money up front, get the units out there as quickly as possible, and tell that, given the housing shortage for elderly here, is just tell that story. And again, it's great marketing for the HCDA, get stuff done, right? Solves the problem of what they can do and we get it done. So it doesn't sound like, even if it's 15 or 20 grand a unit, that even a $2,000 a month rent is going to cash flow us positive to put us in a better situation. So with that said, it may be a good idea, as Chasen said, to fund it up front and get it done.
Thank you, Member Sakota. Member Evans.
I'd like to second that thought. when we're looking at building new affordable senior living units at $1 million apiece, the amount it takes to get these back online is peanuts. And it would just be a terrific, I think it's worth putting it up front from HCDA. If you want to give Mark Development a zero interest loan with a very long term, you know, maybe they would consider that. I don't know. But and does HCDA have a revolving loan fund?
We do not, but we have previously transferred $1.5 million from HCDA to the limited partnership to rehab units, pay maintenance fees, cover operations. You know, we're at about a break-even point. But just last month, the AOAO approved a maintenance fee increase that kind of ate up that surplus we would have had for the pending year. And, you know, we're chasing our tail a little bit, you know, with the expected insurance increases next year after that. So we're trying to balance everything and also eventually pay ourselves back in the future.
I appreciate the perspective of the controller for HCDA. But from a broader perspective of the relative cost of affordable housing units, these are so cheap, and they would such a win. I think Member Sakota could join that communication and marketing team. He nailed it.
Thank you, Member Evans. Thank you,
Member
Member
Evans. Members, any other comments or questions? I'd just like to echo what the members have stated. I think this would be a great and effective use of funds. To your point, Director Nakamoto, those funds don't necessarily have to come from HCDA. I think that we should work with our area representative, senator, and council member to see whether there are additional funding sources that may want to contribute to this effort, because to Member Evans' point, dollar for dollar, you will never get less expensive units than these. And given the demonstrated need for housing as evidenced by the wait list, we have people who would love to call these units home. So I know that's putting more work on the staff, but anything we can do to get these up and running soon would be much appreciated by this board member.
Thank you, Chair. Noted.
Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions by board members, we'll move now to public testimony on this agenda item. Is there anyone registered to testify?
None, Chair.
Okay, do we have any persons in person or online who wish to present testimony?
None, Chair.
Okay, now we'll move to agenda item number 5, report of the executive director, monthly report, and other status reports, and the approved permit applications that did not require HRS 206E-5.6 public hearings. Executive Director Nakamoto will now present the monthly report.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, the summary, the report is at tab 5, where you look at, but I'm available for questions.
Members, comments or questions for Director Nakamoto on the report? Being none, is there any public testimony? Do we have people pre-signed up for testimony?
None, Chair.
Anyone willing to, anyone wishing to provide testimony in person or online?
No, none, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much to the staff and to all the board members for attending today. And thank you to those who joined us on Zoom or in person. That concludes our business today. The meeting is adjourned. The time is now 11:34 a.m.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Bye, everybody.